Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. I am one of your hosts, Joel, and with me as always is...
Brian, hello.
Hi. And this week we'll be talking about the season finale of Season 2 of Buffy, Becoming Part 2. So welcome into our auditory crypt. We are your crypt keepers. You will hear, hopefully, potentially, a very thematic, heavy storm that is outside right now. So we're enjoying all the pathetic fallacy.
I mean, like, it's only August, so, normal for there to be huge, rainstorms. Well done, global warming.
Oh, chaos reigns, like the planet is dying.
Yeah. It's also very likely that at some point you will hear the swelling and weird cutting of a concert in the background, because we live around the corner from a place that hosts concerts basically, and they kind of sprung a festival on us without notice. Did you know that was going to happen?
Maybe we're just not clued into the music or the festival scene.
Yeah, Lily Allen was playing last night, which was kind of weird. But yeah, so at some point some music might start playing. Sorry,
let's pretend it's intentional.
Yeah.
So I love the simplicity of this episode of a world where the world is ending because of really demonstrable and straightforward means, as opposed to we have poisoned the planet and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. But it's more comforting.
Yeah, absolutely. And easily solvable as well.
Yeah, you just stab your boyfriend.
Exactly.
How interesting.
Is that all I have? Let's stick our teeth right into the character artery of this episode. If you want to give us the Buffy and summary, Brian, of what's happening in this episode.
Absolutely. So this episode is Season 2, Episode 22. It was first aired on May 19th, 1998, and it was written and directed by the one and the only Rob Desotel. I'm just kidding. It was written and directed by Joss Whedon, of course.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So here's our Buffy Ann summary. Accused of Kendra's murder, Buffy is approached by Spike, who offers help against Angelus in exchange for Drusilla's life. Angelus.
Let's never say it again.
I don't have to say it again, do I?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Giles resists torture, but under hypnosis tells Drusilla the ritual, thinking she is Jenny. Expelled from school by Snyder and thrown out by Joyce when she finds Buffy is the Slayer, Buffy fights Angelus as Katla awakes. Willow's curse reinsouls Angel. Buffy stabs him and sends him to hell to save the world. Despairing, she leaves Sunnydale.
I'm giving Brian a big thumbs up every time he says Angelus correctly so he can keep going.
And Despairing, she leaves Sunnydale is actually my favourite Shakespearean
album. Sonnet.
Stage direction,
incredible. So this episode, also known by its alternative title, Buffy's Really Bad No Good Day, is the conclusion of what I think would generally be considered the best season of Buffy, or definitely our favourite season of Buffy.
I've always said that Season 3 is my favourite season.
Really?
Yeah, because I love Faith so much, and the mayor really strikes a chord with me in lots of ways. And I've always felt in my younger, more naive days, I always found Season 2 to be a bit too archetypical, if you get me. It was it was the Buffy thing was just the Angel thing, So when I watched the Angel thing when I was younger, I was like, oh, well, it's just the Angel thing. But now I'm like, you know what, this is a classic for a reason. I mean, obviously we haven't watched Season 3 recently, so maybe when we get to the end of that, I'll be like, oh wait, no. So I might be suffering from recency bias, but yeah, this has to be one of the best seasons of TV ever made.
I think what marks it is that Season 2 is what you can get further and further away from Buffy fandom, further into the outer reaches, and people still know what happened in this. And that's not the case with Season 3. This is indelible for people's understanding of Buffy until you kind of fade into nothingness, But anyway, before we get into it, I just want to make sure we have a very clear understanding of the structure of this episode, because a lot happens in it. So as you enumerated there, Kendra dies, her body disapparates like Qui-Gon Jinn out of the library somehow. Buffy is accused of murdering her. Some cops try to shoot her, which I'm sure seemed incongruous at the time. Now, unfortunately, less so. Snyder expels her. Joyce kicks her out. Joyce finds out she's a vampire slayer. Willow gets a concussion. Willow does a spell.
Buffy teams up with Spike.
Important moment, definitely. Spike betrays Angel and leaves town with Drusilla. and Giles gets tortured. Xander pulls a characteristic dick move, and ultimately she has to stab her boyfriend through the heart just as he's re-ensouled, sending him to hell for over 100 years to save the world from Cathla, and she skips town with nothing else to live for, essentially. So a real upbeat end to the season.
Yeah, it's so well done. It's such a beautiful tragic ending. Yeah. It's so well written. It's so well structured. Imagine watching this episode for the first time in 1998 and sitting there watching like when Angel gets re-ensouled and watching as Buffy realizes that she has to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, you would just be sobbing. I mean, like, I was crying a little bit.
We're actually coming off this, I think, a little emotional, going straight into it after having just watched the episode. I felt very emotional.
Me too. And, like, yeah, I'd say if you're watching this originally, you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But it was so good.
And I think what is a good example of, how Buffy earns respect is they underscore these moments with I may use the wrong description here, but kind of emotional, kind of indie music kind of stuff, kind of acoustic guitar kind of music, and it's the kind of thing that in any other show looks a bit cheesy, but Buffy kind of says, no, fuck it, we're going to do this a little bit.
Buffy has an odd relationship with music, I think, because
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, there's definitely scenes where it's just like bad trip hop, weird 90s shit. This is Sarah McLachlan, who she wouldn't be considered indie. She's a very like staple Americana. You break out your Sarah McLachlan CDs to have a bit of a cry.
Sure.
Importantly, not acoustic music. It was all piano.
Okay. Yeah. Can I just establish, if you haven't picked this up by listening to any of this podcast, I have absolutely no musical understanding whatsoever. So that is where I'm articulating this from.
Yeah.
So yes, that's probably quite an obvious thing.
So importantly, you do know enough to know that Sleater Kinney is the best band who's ever lived.
Well, that cuts through the noise. You know what I mean?
And if
I have ears and a heart.
Exactly. So if you're out in the world and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, gosh, I'd love to listen to some ladies shouting at me because they're able to and because they're young and vivacious and wonderful, listen to Sleater Kinney's albums, all of them, literally every single one of them. And especially their new album, The Center Untold, which was released on Thursday, and it's really good. I really like it.
And this isn't a paid sponsorship. We just actually really like the album.
Yeah, we had to see them live a couple of years ago, and they were incredible. And it was so wonderful because I loved Sleater Kinney from like maybe 2005 onwards, just after they had broken up. So there was no chance I was ever going to get to see them live. Mm-hmm. And then they reunited, and it was a real big moment for me. But yeah.
So yeah, Buffy, definitely strange relationship with music, and piano, Sarah McLachlan. But how would you describe it? It's sad, like it was effective. Vocal music. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, no, definitely. So she was like, it's thematically relevant. I could have loved you so much better than this. It's Buffy feeling so lonesome and sad. Interestingly, the song is called "Full of Grace," which is one of the lines in the episode that she sings. Sorry, and what was the character that Angel plays in "I Only Have Eyes for You"? Grace. So maybe a little bit of a connection there. It's effective. It feels lonely and sad.
And as an episode, it raises the stakes very well. We pointed out in the last episode, the first half was two-parter, how the vampires attack the library, and there's a real sense of like Xander gets his arm broken, Willow gets a bookcase dropped on her. It's a sense of, we're not playing games here. Like, this is real danger. And this escalates again to a very jarring place where, they're trying to arrest her because they think she's killed Kendra, and Joyce finds out, and things are changing that you can't take back. And Buffy's really just dreadful ability to lie about anything isn't going to get her out of this. She can't just say, I'm this is my bumpy four-headed friend from the Double Meat Palace. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna be like, no, they think you killed somebody, and that's like really a real problem. So it does feel like everything is collapsing around her in this episode in a very visceral way.
It really does.
Like, a cop tries to shoot her.
Yeah, that was
within seconds of her. Then first, she was a fleeing murder suspect, but she was 16.
But yeah, like, think about that. I mean, a fleeing murder suspect doesn't justify getting shot. I mean, like, there's so few situations in which cops should feel justified in shooting someone, especially when, like, this person hasn't been prosecuted. They haven't been, like, proven guilty or anything.
They were also aiming for her head.
Like, it's insane. But it does lead to Buffy wearing her really, really awful criminal outfit.
So I have written down here, Buffy wears her disguise beanie.
Yeah, she really does wear a disguise beanie. She always wears her like beanie hats where like she always wears them slightly too big, where they always sit on top of her head and there's a little pouch of air on top. I'm always like, why?
And she wears them. She wore them into the hospital to disguise herself. So she could not have made herself stand out more than dressing like a cat burglar in Eeyore.
Okay, so this is the culmination of the Buffy Angel arc. You know, from this point on in Buffy, like Angel does come back in season 3, obviously, and that actually, I've read apparently that just was not a surprise at all when it happens in season 3, because immediately after they aired this, they announced that Angel was getting his own TV show. So there was no question about whether or not Angel will be back, which, I mean, well done.
Buffy and Angel never had a great couple name. Bangle, yeah. The end of the momentous Bangle arc.
Exactly, because season 3 they don't really have a thing. You know, it's fizzled out and it's sad and it's ending. You know.
Yeah, and as you know, we'll talk about when we eventually get to the Cordelia chase. But Buffy does appear one song on Angel, and you know they do acknowledge the fact that they will always be each other's soulmate. But it never recaptures. You know the strain it puts on your relationship when one person kills the other. You know, it's difficult to come back from it.
It sure is. But like, I mean, it culminates in a very, very like good scene. So you know, Buffy for this whole season has been kind of trying to get to the point where she can kill Angel, and where she can bring herself to actually like do the act, because you know, she's had to watch her friends die. She's had to watch him do awful things. And she's like failed to act on that a couple of times now by this point. So to have gone from the point of like of their relationship reaching its height, and then a colossal drop, and then bring them to this point, and it concludes in like a quite arresting sword fight. Which, I mean, the amount of stunt people featured in that scene was insane. As in, like
they are very visible.
So clearly stunt people in that scene.
The main problem being that David Boreanaz is very what's the word I'm looking for? Characteristic or identifiably spiked hair and gelled hair, and his very talented stunt double has a very short receding hairline, so it's just not.
It doesn't quite work.
It's not matched. But like, let's not dunk on it. Like its choreography it's exceptional, particularly in comparison to anything that's been on the show before. Like, Buffy always has pretty decent fight choreography, but this was next level.
Apparently Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Boreanaz did actually do sword fighting classes for this episode to be able to do it. I mean, they don't really seem to do a lot of the shots, but like it's a very arresting scene, and it's very momentous. It feels like a conclusion. I was actually wondering how do you as Joss Whedon say, okay, I want this to end in a sword fight, and it really does kind of like pitch Buffy as the knight, and it takes it into a very medieval, Shakespearean and traditionally dramatic space to say that Buffy and Angel are going to have a sword fight and duel. And
swords are like quite an atypical vampire combat thing. Like, I can't really think of almost any other. Like, it makes this iconic and recognizable, I think, very specifically.
It sure does, yeah. And like, they're obviously like, tools of the episode in the sense that they both have their own use. So Angel has pulled his sword from Acathla, which is basically the key to unlocking hell, and Buffy has a sword that's been
blessed by the knight who killed Acathla in the 15th century,
which she's going to use to reseal the hell opening. So they do have a point, but it's a stunning scene. Huh?
Most swords do have a point.
Good point. So it's a really stunning scene. It's very moving. It's really moving. I was again impressed with David Boreanaz's ability to switch between those two characters.
Yeah,
because he goes from such vitriol and such bitterness to such like being so gentle.
Puppy dog.
Yeah, such a puppy dog so quickly. It's really impressive.
That like really recognizable Angel vulnerable face where he looks like his allergies are really acting on, and he's just looking up at Buffy so plaintively. But yeah, I think like they do, the strength of the writing here carries a couple of impressive things. One is that the apocalypse itself is in some ways quite small scale. If we accept the premise that a Catholic can consume the world, but the actual fight scene is in a relatively small soundstage with the three main vampires, Buffy, Giles tied up, and like two disposable vampires. It's not epic by what we would usually require epic to be, but it feels momentous. The idea of one sword that can end the world and one that can stop it is such a MacGuffin and such a Maltese Falcon. But they also, kind of acknowledge it in kind of a right way, because Oz returns in this episode, and they talk about we have to kill a Catholic, a seal the demon, because Angel's doing this, and Oz is like, I feel like I've missed a lot in the last 2 days. Can someone catch me up on this? Because it develops in a very short amount of time, but no, it's very good. And I think one of probably the key, what we don't always remember, but one of the key things that's going to ripple forward from this is Spike and Spike's evolution towards an anti-hero rather than an outright villain. And he plays it very well in this episode. He's very likable in this episode. He does a really, really good job of making the character very relatable and very very likable. So I mean, his interactions with Joyce are really spot on, and the Spike Joyce relationship is one of my favorite side stories in all of Buffy, I think. Yeah,
totally agree. So, I mean, it's very easy to read the swords as being somewhat phallic. That'd be traditionally what we'd read into it. I would say if there's a phallic element to it, it's to show that Buffy and Angel are on an equal playing field. Yeah. It's not that Buffy is the maiden in distress. Buffy is well able. It also leads to one of the best moments in all of Buffy The Vampire Slayer, which is Angel saying, what do you have, Buffy? You have no friends, no family, or no friends, no weapon, no hope. What's left? And he swings down on her with his sword, and she catches it right in front of her face, and just says, "Me." Yeah, and it's wonderful. It's the point of the show in some ways. Is that I
still get chills watching it.
Me too. As in Buffy is all about her chosen family. That's a huge part of Buffy. But ultimately, her strength of character is all that she needs to save the day. Yeah,
and it's something that kind of Whistler textually is trying to say to her is that's not just about having sword. It's about at the end of the day, it's just you, and having that chosen family is great and really magnifies it. But she's the other side of her only having herself is knowing that having herself is enough as well. And I also noticed that in watching it this time around, that the episode and the end of the world very much takes place as the sun is coming up, which is kind of an interesting touch. But when she is cornered and he's about to pierce her with the sword, she's sitting in a well of sunlight as she catches the sword. It's a very specific turning point for her.
It is.
It's very arresting.
It really is, and it's you have to look at it in comparison to what we've taken from season 1's conclusion. So season 1 is essentially Buffy saying that she's not going to try to exist in this kind of state of arrested development. She's not going to reject adulthood. She's willing to take on the responsibilities of adulthood and to face it head on, and that she's no longer afraid of death, and she's no longer afraid of that. This is bringing the reality of that to its ultimate conclusion. It's saying, here is the adulthood stuff. This is it, and it brings her to her lowest. And it's basically this, for my money's worth, this season is about paring Buffy back to her most simple form, which is no friends, no family, nothing except herself, and showing what Buffy can do when she has nothing and just herself. Yeah. And what she can do is what she's struggled to try to get towards all season, which is to sacrifice Angel and basically let go of the one thing in her life that really brings her comfort. And it's such a nice term, because the whole season she's been trying to prepare to kill Angelus. She's been trying to prepare to kill Angelus, and in this moment she has to kill Angel instead. Yeah, and you find that's what she's been building towards, and it's just very upsetting.
Yeah, and she Dermot Geller carries a very good. She's crying when she does it, but not in a stoic, the way we're kind of often expected to see heroes as emotionally reserved and shedding a single tear when their dog dies, that kind of thing. She's very upset, and she still does it. And I think that's something that Buffy often tries to carry through, is the fact that you can still feel your emotions. Emotions are not weaknesses, but you still need to get the job done, and you still need to move forward and all that. And this is really very much about that. She feels it. She has tenderness with him, and she still has to kill him.
It's quite sad, because it's all quite sad, obviously. She shows a real caring attitude towards him just before she kills him. Very notably, just before Darla sires Angel, she tells him to close your eyes. And that's what Buffy says to him just before she kills him here. So while we've like identified Darla as having a very maternal role there in that scene, it was very like, it was full of maternal imagery. I think this has a kind of a caring role to it too. It's like, it's almost a reversal where Angel has always been Buffy's rock and her protector in some ways. She has to essentially in this moment do her best to protect Angel. Yeah. And before she kills him, which I thought was just interesting.
Sure. So a couple of interesting things, I think, in terms of the kind of structural impact of this episode. So you have it starting off with the cops arriving, Snyder turning up, knowing that Buffy didn't do this realistically, and saying to the cops, that's the girl, she has anger issues, take her away, etc. And I just, on some level, I appreciate the simplicity of how Snyder is just an uncomplicated asshole. In every single one of his performances shows not it's perfectly played by Armin Shimmerman, and it's not a one-dimensional character in some ways, but he's a one-dimensional person. Yeah, he has no variation. And there's a great moment with Buffy where two moments where she's being arrested. She calls him a stupid little troll, which I really enjoyed. But when he comes back later, admits he knows that she didn't do it, but he's expelling her and he's reveling in the moment. She says, "You never got a single date in high school, did you?" And he says, "What's your point?" Which I just enjoyed. And then what I didn't remember was this now 3 times I think that they very specifically highlighted that he gets on his enormous comical cell phone and calls and says, "I have some good news the mayor will be happy about," and foreshadowing this idea of the mayor. What is the good news the mayor's happy about?
I was also curious about this. Maybe that they're finally getting Buffy kicked out of school. So that she like separating her from her friends and stuff potentially.
When we go into season 3, does the mayor know that Buffy is the Vampire Slayer? Is that a thing?
Yes. Okay. Yes, he does. I'm pretty certain he does. It's also interesting in the sense that it's the only season in which we have foreknowledge of the big bad of the next season. So it's the only time they ever lay the basis for the big bad of the next season in the previous season. Which is cool. It's good writing. It was interesting. I think going forward from this, I think seasons 2 and 3 are the 2 most connected seasons of any. Yeah. Or maybe 1, 2, and 3 actually. Whereas going forth from that point, seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all very, very separate entities.
Yeah, I don't feel like the later seasons, what I would consider the second half of the show, are in any way not thematic or not don't have good continuity. But you feel like the first 3 seasons were what Joss Whedon had in mind. Yeah. He kind of wrote a sense of an arc, and the testament to the show is that when it kind of finishes that initial arc, it can still have meaning and value and growth. But yeah, this feels like that this is the high school arc that he's very much culminating with. So we've Jaws gets knocked out yet again. Someone else who should maybe have a look at the old MRI machine, see how his noggin's getting on there. We have Willow in hospital, and it's quite upsetting to see like Willow is like properly like hospitalized, and she's in a coma. They think she's not going to come out of it, and she does in about an hour and a half. So it kind of loses some of its dramatic impact. But we have an interesting scene where Xander, just before she comes around, is espousing to her about how he needs her as a best friend and says, "I love you," and then she wakes up looking for Oz. How do we feel about that scene? I thought it was interesting. I didn't know what I thought about it.
So it's an interesting one because it's clearly setting up just the issue for Oz and Xander in the next season. So the not Oz and Xander, Willow and Xander. The Willow and
Very
Xander,
different show, but I would watch it.
Yeah, the Willow and Xander like dynamic is interesting because in seasons 1 and 2 it's so clearly Willow pining over Xander and him totally ignoring her, and now that she's like properly not available, he starts to want her. To the point where in Lover's Walk, I want to say is the episode, they end up kissing, and that's like, so I think that's kind of like queuing that up essentially. Sure. But it was an odd scene. I found it like I just don't like Xander, so that doesn't help. But I found him just selfish in the way he approached it.
Well, I think it's another example of Xander wanting something when he feels like it's been taken away from him. He frames that very much in terms of how he is losing his best friend, but also this like generalized anger against people who have done this because it's impacted him. And obviously the thing that we have to say, is the quintessential moment that kind of feeds our dislike of Xander's interactions in the Scooby Gang is that Willow puts herself out to perform the spell to try and reinstall Angel in time for Buffy to be able to save him, and tells Xander to warn her so she can stall. And when he does find Buffy, he decides to not tell her this and say that Willow said to kick Angel's ass. And whether or not her knowledge of this would have necessarily forestalled anything that came afterwards is slightly debatable. But obviously, one of the more unexamined avenues, kind of plot speaking, which is fine because things are unfinished in life, is just the fact that Xander did this, that he kind of forestalled the possibility of and just took upon himself to make this decision that not only was probably selfishly motivated, affected Buffy massively, and also really wasn't respectful of what Willow's was doing, and she was actually taking on
quite a big risk
to perform this ritual, which Xander was essentially cutting the possibility of it succeeding. It's incredibly selfish.
Yeah, and ultimately, Buffy, more information would have been more valuable, as in having that information, she might have made sure to keep Angel away from the statue, or she might have, there's so many different options there that he just completely removes for her, and it's deeply selfish and super not good. And even the music it was judging at the time, the music was real someone did something dodgy. But no, it's indefensible. He's a scumbag. I don't like him. Fair
enough. Xander Harris hate cast, season 2 finale. But Willow, great girl.
Yeah,
does a great spell.
Yeah.
Really, as we talked about, emphasizes that she's channeling great power through her, which is obviously a quite challenging thing.
It was. I remember watching that scene when I was younger and just thinking it was the most exciting thing of all time, where Willow basically is doing her ritual with Cordelia and Oz. Cordelia, who I think was underutilized extremely in this episode.
Yeah.
But sure, listen, there's lots to pack in. But she's doing her ritual and suddenly starts tilt her head up very dramatically. And clearly there is some spirit moving through her, and she starts speaking in Latin. Though the subtitles in our DVD said she was speaking Romanian, I'm pretty sure it's Latin.
I'm not by any means an expert in any Romanian or associated language, but I don't think it sounds like Latin, and that sounded like Latin, and they specifically said they're reading a Latin text. I think it was just making an assumption based on the fact that they were doing a ritual that had been performed by Romanians.
Agreed, yeah.
But it's just an odd thing. But yeah, see, the problem with Cordelia here is that Cordelia, as she currently is a supporting character, but also a comic foil to some degree. And there wasn't a lot of room for comedy in this. There was punning, the odd bit of quipping, but not for the kind of the actual jokes that Cordelia does. But I appreciate that Cordelia, in terms of her actual character development, she's happy just to help people do what they need to do.
Yeah,
she's considerate. She goes and gets things. She supports the performance of rituals and things like that she doesn't really understand or necessarily feel comfortable doing. She's just a good supportive person in that respect. Yeah.
What I like about this episode as well is that it's highlighting Willow as one of the most powerful people in the gang, as in Giles at various points tries to do similar magics and never has that moment of kind of epiphany that Willow does in this episode, where she is clearly channeling major power. Giles kind of seems to be doing the best he can as a very intelligent person, but Willow obviously has a very natural affinity for it, and that marks the two most powerful people, and this will be the case going forward in the Buffy in the Scoobies are women, which I think is so important.
Yeah, Giles has an incredible amount of book learning and some natural ability, but Willow has both instinctive ability and power, and also just incredible intelligence. She's a twofer there. We'll talk about it more in future episodes, because obviously it's quite a packed episode plot-wise, but I am thinking about this with Willow in terms of what I've been chatting to you about recently, which is that I started reading the new Buffy comics.
The Origin comics, is it?
No, actually, that's separate.
Oh, sorry.
The Origin comics were part of the original license, and they kind of talk about her time before she came to Sunnydale. But this is not just recently, 2019, Boom Studios, who've done a couple of good adaptations of kind of film and TV properties, have started doing Buffy. But what if Buffy was set in 2019 rather than 1997?
Sure.
And how that changes things. And two of the things that I think are tied into this, which we can look about going forward, is what made my little queer heart melt, which is the fact that Willow in season 1 time in this new continuity is already out and has a girlfriend, because it's 2019. It's a little easier to do than you could have done in 1997, and she's not shy, she's just out.
Yeah.
And that does change her character and her agency. And also, like Xander has his own Twitter/Tumblr esque blog where he basically talks about how sad he is and how he's the only person in his friend group who doesn't have any skills. And it's very on the nose, but like very like, yeah, that's definitely who Xander will be, do you know?
Yeah.
Because as you said, everyone has a thing, and obviously his role in terms of a Monster of the Week scenario is he's the normie and he's grounded, but ultimately they're all incredibly powerful and capable, and he's just there fucking things up. Yeah.
Speaking of Giles, though, Giles is like has like such an upsetting storyline in this episode. So what happens is essentially Angel kidnaps Giles and tortures him to try to get information about how to unlock a catalyst, essentially. And to do this, Spike, even though he's supposed to be on Buffy's side by this point, suggests that they get Drusilla to make him think that she is Jenny Calendar.
Yeah.
And what follows is an incredibly upsetting scene where Giles says to Jenny, I thought I'd lost you, how could you be here? And, you know, here's how he can basically unlock a Cathla, and I miss you so much, and we need to leave, and all this stuff. It was very, very upsetting, a very upsetting send-off to the Jenny Calendar character, though she does appear once more, I think.
Yeah, and Robbie the more like reprising that role just to make that clear. Yeah. And there's an interesting note to it as well, because they talk about...
It's very well shot. It was very like, it was all lots of close-ups of her lips of their two silhouettes like speaking to each other in a very sensual and very sad way.
Well, they kind of narrows in on this kind of age aspect of the sexuality and the sensuality and the physicality, which was something that was always slightly reserved in his actual relationship with Jenny, which is, I just think, quite a well written note in terms of pressing on something that's a bit like undelivered or unspoken or cooked short. But no, it's quite upsetting. We talk a lot about how Buffy's never the same after this, but Giles is never the same after season 2. He never loves a gang in the way that he did.
No, his only other girlfriend is Olivia, who just doesn't get a look in, really.
Yeah, so he kind of carries that as well. But it's very upsetting. But Giles has like a really, just again, strong moment as someone who wouldn't, under any normal means, kind of give up in this scenario. And he kind of, after he's been tortured, he goes to Angelus to divulge the secret, and he says, to perform the ritual successfully, you need to draw blood while wearing a tutu. And then calls Angel a pillock. And it just made me laugh. It's actually it's a scene that's specifically echoed in Angel when Wesley is captured by Faith, and Faith tortures him with like glass, and it's that same thing of like a sweaty English water bleeding slightly with ambiguous torture having been done to them. I think it's meant to echo this, because Angel has to talk her down and be like, I know what it's like to be a terrible person. Basically.
The other interesting thing there is that when Xander comes to save Giles to untie him and bring him out, Giles is like, oh, you're not real, they're just trying to show me things I want to see so that I can give them more information. And Xander says, but why would they show me? Why would they show you me then? And he's like, oh yeah, good point, let's go.
Yes. You never get a Buffy that's completely humorless, which I do appreciate, because it can be quite heavy stuff sometimes.
The body's pretty humorless.
It is, but I'm sure there's a joke or two in there.
There are a couple of jokes in there, yeah.
But yeah, so like as I was saying, there's a couple of developments there. You have, I feel very much fully formed. You see in this episode the spike that will eventually lead to him being. I
totally agree. It's like, I mean, the rest of the season I didn't quite hear the Spike voice, but this was the Spike voice that he uses for the rest of the show. And he talks about something which I think is really fundamental to my understanding of vampires in this show, which is, he says how vampires love to talk big about wanting to end the world, and occasionally there are some real psychopaths who have that vision, but really it's just something that they chat about to seem like big men. But at the end of the day, vampires like Earth. There's a lot of food around. He has this just way of looking at it, which is really endemic of kind of the day-to-day vampire later in the show. Sure.
And then that comes fully formed, and his like speech about goodbye Piccadilly, farewell Leicester Bloody Square, like, it's a really, for me, that Spike, whenever I think of Spike, I have that moment of him being like, oh, I'm just going to go kill this cop. And she's like, don't do that. He's like, oh yeah, sorry, we're not meant to do that when you're around. You can see the banter that made Joss Whedon think this is someone who we can write extensively into the show in future. And obviously he leaves town at the end of this with Drusilla.
Who quickly leaves him, I think, right?
Yeah, if they kind of get together and break up so many times in the two shows, it's hard to keep track of. But I think
that might be the last scene with Drusilla in Buffy. I think she might reappear in Angel, but never in Buffy again.
She
maybe?
does. Yeah, she leaves him almost immediately for some kind of pus steaming. I think is the joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again driving out of town in his car with the blacked out windows, with her sleeping on his lap, just like incredibly dangerous, even for someone who is immortal. It's a very stressful whenever you see him driving anywhere.
One of my favorite scene in the episode probably was coming out to Joyce as the Vampire Slayer.
Let's talk about Buffy coming out to Joyce, because the subtext rapidly became text.
Yeah, there's no way to interpret that isn't just Buffy coming out.
Because I think when we were expecting this to come up, we were thinking, okay, well, obviously this is very thematically heavy from a queer point of view, and we can interpret it in this ways. And no, they just do a coming out scene.
It's not like this is reminiscent of literally things that Joyce says is I mean, have you tried not being a Slayer? And are you sure you're a vampire Slayer?
Is this really because you didn't have a strong father figure in your life?
Yeah. There's also a really wonderful point where she smashes the glass she's holding, saying, "I do not accept this."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, she's clearly related to Root Fisher.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying that as well. But yeah, so it's there's distinctions as well as parallels, but like very much the seeing is about how Buffy is saying that being a Slayer is something that she wouldn't necessarily choose to do, because it can be quite a challenging thing to do, and can be very lonely and can be very dangerous. But it is something that is innate and something that she will continue to do. And Joyce basically needs to orient herself to that. And Joyce playing the role of the parent who is not processing this very well and thinking that she can still control it. We're going to put you in a better school. We're going to keep you away from the people you've been hanging out with. All this kind of stuff. And a scene which is, can be very true to life, which is essentially ends with her kicking Buffy out of the house.
Yeah, she says to her, if you walk through that door, if you leave right now, you're never coming back, basically. But yeah, what Buffy says is actually really upsetting. So she says, "Do you think I chose to be like this? Do you have any idea how lonely it is? How dangerous? I would love to be upstairs watching TV or gossiping about boys or, God, even studying. But I have to save the world again."
Yeah,
it's sad.
And I don't feel like it's a scene that can be written without the knowledge of it applying to probably a number of disenfranchised groups, but particularly to queer people. And it's still effective, and it's still affecting.
Yeah. It really reminds me of that X-Men 2 scene where Bobby comes out as a mutant to his parents. And they say literally the same thing as, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" Yeah.
Of course, fictionally, in Bobby Iceman Jones, what's his last name again? Bobby what?
Oh, God.
Iceman, anyway. In current continuity, is gay.
Yeah, he came out. It's been suggested for years and years and years, and finally happened. Yeah,
which is an interesting one. But yeah, it's definitely
Bobby Drake.
Bobby Drake, yeah, it's definitely a cornerstone of the. What I do think is inbuilt metaphor in Buffy about kind of the double life and the necessity of strength through vulnerability, and of finding the normality in change and transformation and all the kind of stuff. It's the queer experience, and it's very much written through this episode, and the sacrifice and the sense of needing a chosen family and losing it, and wanting to find some normality, but also not wanting to give up what makes you. It's very evocative.
I totally agree. This is a weird episode because like the Becoming episodes, they're like stunning, and every single essay that you can find about Buffy Vampire Slayer will refer to them to some degree, but usually only as a plot episode, if you get me. Mm-hmm. Very few actually take to it in terms of a critical analysis.
Sure.
Perspective. I think that's really interesting because I think it indicates that the episode's incredibly open to interpretation from an audience perspective, in the sense that there's no academic key that unlocks this episode. This episode unlocks itself in a very, very clear and direct way. There's no person who watched this episode that didn't get the implications, because it's just well written like that. Sometimes if a meaning has to be academically come to in an episode or in a text, that's sometimes a failing of that writing. If in the context it should just be direct and clear. And this episode, I think, is just extremely direct and clear, and it really delivers its content and message directly to the audience. I think that's why there's very little close reading of the episode.
Sure, yeah, no, I think that's a very astute point. I think it's something that's important to always convey, the fact that there can be a misapprehension about critical analysis and about themes. I think sometimes to the general public that there's something to be valued about something being incredibly difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
The Da Vinci Code mentality about things, but things aren't devalued by being available to more people.
Yeah.
Like obviously, without being too trite about it, something we hold incredibly deserved esteem culturally is Shakespeare's writing, and there's a lot to be read into Shakespeare, but Shakespeare also often said this is what's happening,
and it's funny and fun and good.
This is what's happening on stage. The characters would say this is what I'm feeling, and the stuff is right there for you to use. And what Joss Whedon has often done is will disarm your cynicism by saying, oh yeah, this is what I'm doing, and then do it, and then actually kind of catch you off guard. Because you feel like, oh, I'm in on the joke, we all know what's happening here, and then it's actually so strong that you still feel upset or engaged by it.
Yeah, it's an awareness of the meta-narrativistic stuff that you can kind of get in on the ground floor with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's strong Shakespearean themes in this, but when we say Shakespearean, we mean the same themes that have stretched back through human literature as long as there's been fiction about kind of love and loss and connection and identity. And there's a reason why it recurs for thousands and thousands of years, because when done correctly, it connects to the individual human experience. And this is an episode, and these episodes together are incredibly human. Incredibly human episodes.
I agree. What do you think this episode and this season says about Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
In what sense?
What's the message that this episode carries?
I suppose like the message kind of most directly is Buffy understanding that she has unlimited strength within herself, and that she is complete in herself, that she has had many things that have kind of led her to define herself in relation to different parts in her life, and how she's moving away from what she thought she was towards other things, other people's expectations, and this is a finishing of her as a person in a way. There's development and evolution of that finished person, but this is her saying, no, this is me, and this is enough, and even in the most difficult of times it's still enough. And that's I think a key that unlocks her personality kind of going forward. So it's coming to the understanding that she will be in adversity and will feel it, and the feeling is very necessary.
Sure. And
that she will do it anyway. And I think that's the quintessential Buffy thing, is that she will feel everything and she will still do what she needs to do.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. It's a good episode.
It is. It's all right. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's actually interesting because again, it sounds like a bad setup for a two-parter, because the first part is all exposition in some ways. It's a setup, backstory. It's incredibly dense, and this is kind of all action.
Yeah,
and that sounds terrible, but it just works because it was carefully plotted and weighted.
I agree. Here are a couple of Buffy bits for you, because we're going to do the dusting now. The detective who we have here is Detective Stein. Mm-hmm. He was also in Ted, so no wonder he thinks that Buffy has a violent past.
Jesus, yeah. I thought I recognised him,
yeah. He'll appear again in Consequences, which is the episode where Faith kills the guy. Yeah.
So he is specifically from the Slayer homicide division.
Exactly.
Third time's the charm. I actually found a Slayer who did kill a human.
This is the second time, of course, that Buffy has come out to Joyce. The first time being right after she finds out that she's a vampire slayer.
Yeah.
And she tells Hank and Joyce, and they put her in a mental institution.
Yeah. Which I have seen characterized as a certain inconsistency, but it's not.
No.
It's actually such a quintessential, if nothing else, queer trope of having to come out multiple times. You have a conversation when you're 15 or 16 and you think that's it, and then years later there's selective amnesia about it. So I actually think that's a perfect inclusion in terms of her history.
Yeah. The very iconic grr arg in this episode where they show the iconic Mutant Enemy Productions zombie comes across and says grr arg is replaced in this episode with I need a hug. Which was kind of cute.
That has some great faith that in advance that you think your episode's gonna be really sad.
Yeah,
exactly. Change that. Yeah.
And also at one point Spike chokes Drusilla into unconsciousness.
Mm-hmm.
but she doesn't breathe, so that's going to be a bit difficult.
She doesn't. Is generally established that you can't actually do that. To the extent, I'm actually trying to remember if it was filled with water or not, but Angel is buried in a coffin under water by his son in Angel for like 3 months or something. Vampires do not need to breathe, but there's actually no way to reconcile that, but we'll let it slide.
Absolutely. All right, do you have any Buffy bits, Sergio?
Yeah, I do. So Xander forgets to tell Oz where Willow is when she's in the hospital, which is just like come on. I mentioned that Giles is knocked out. The police suggest to Joyce that Willow is Buffy's second victim, which is both upsetting and incredibly unprofessional.
Why didn't Xander tell anyone that no, Buffy did not kill these people?
Yeah, why didn't Xander do anything at any point ever?
Yeah.
Buffy says to Spike that she hates him, which is just obviously an interesting parallel to the season 7 finale when she says that she loves him. And it's something that I'm really interested in looking at because I didn't think about their relationship as it evolved when I watched it initially, and now I want to see how much it works for me because it's a real big shift.
Yeah.
To go from where we are now to the end of season 7. Buffy's lie to Joyce initially about why she knows Spike and what's going on is that she's in a band.
Yeah.
And that she plays the drums.
Yeah.
She is not a good liar.
No, she is not.
When she leaves town on the bus out of Sunnydale, she's obviously trying to dress like a down and out and a runaway, and all she's doing is dressing in baggy jeans.
Yeah, she is.
Which I found as a comment personally, but like it's her very like America's Next Top Model interpretation of what a runaway teen looks like. And overall, I think just in terms of a general kind of last comment on it is it's an incredible arc for David Boreanaz as well. I think he portrayed everything very appropriately throughout this episode and maintained the right amount of menace, and it's just a really, really solid portrayal for him in this episode specifically, let alone in the season.
Agree. So some fashion notes. At one point, Willow's wearing a green and orange jumper, and she makes it work. So well done her. Oz is wearing a very pink shirt in the very last scene, which I found very upsetting. We already highlighted the Buffy criminal outfit, which is hilarious and awful.
She's the best second story man in Sunnydale.
For some reason, Xander always manages to wear huge jumpers and make his ears look huge. His ears always look really sticky-eyed because
he
of what
looks
he
like
wears.
a cartoon character, yeah.
Yeah, he does. But otherwise, the fashion is pretty normal. Joyce, when she just wakes up and thinks that Buffy's arrived home, but instead has left a note.
Wearing a kimono?
She's wearing a kimono-ish, but she also, her hair is like laid. It's like, just like, she's like, oh, I just woke up like this. And her hair is like perfectly curled.
She really sleeps in rollers.
Yeah, she definitely does. But she's so beautiful. I love her so much.
Do we want to move into our ratings for this episode?
We should probably do the death count first.
Oh, we should, because a lot of people died in this episode. So, Buffy stakes 2 unnamed vampires. Angel kills one victim to try and awaken a Cathala. And in a quite a cool scene, I could thought of a better way to say that, but Buffy decapitates a vampire with a sword. And again, how you want to interpret a death count, but Angel is stabbed and sent to hell by Buffy and is killed off of this earth.
Well, I mean, like, spending some time in hell, I think, is a pretty traditional definition of dying.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that one. So really, just like all of the inner circle here, dies or runs away, and
Okay, so what's your rating out of 10, Jolie?
9.8 leather pants.
Okay.
Because we see the departure here, I feel, of these particularly shiny leather pants that Angelus wore all through this season.
Yeah.
R.I.P. So yeah,
9.8. I'm surprised.
9.8. Yeah. I think I can't fault this episode. I can't fault it in terms of it has very clear themes, very engaging themes. It managed to make me upset years later. I think the visuals in it are interesting. I think almost every character I can think of has something iconic that they do, be it Joyce talking to Spike and trying to say, oh, do I know you? And Spike saying, oh, you hit me with an axe in school, Hartmer, get away from my daughter. Giles resisting torture anything Buffy did. Willow being so powerful, it's just
Xander being a cunt. It's just an archetypal episode. The choreography is fantastic during the sword fighting scene, and for something that, as I said, is in some ways kind of weirdly low stakes, aside from the imply again of the world, it's just really, really cohesive, and it's actually just a really enjoyable watch. I found watching it went very quickly. Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's necessarily the best thing that's ever going to happen in Buffy, or ever happened in Buffy. I just thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I'll actually probably give it a 10. I'll go the full hog. I'll give it a 10 out of 10 stupid little trolls out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It's iconic. It's legendary. It's beautiful. 10s across the board. All that stuff. It's
so you were surprised because I was so low?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was wondering why you dropped it 0.2. No, this is the Buffy stuff. This is it. This is the stuff that makes you want to stick around for more. I love it.
Yeah, I suppose like just the 0.2 was just, I suppose, in terms of there are, I think, better individual episodes.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it is the second part of a two-parter. So I think maybe if I could rate Becoming together, 11 out of 10, as a unit.
Yeah.
But just it is a little bit more action. As opposed to
so separate as individual episodes, they don't have like the full packages, essentially is what you're saying.
I know, but I kind of feel like you should watch them back to back. I think it just rolls together.
I agree. What I'd say about that as well is that if you took Becoming Part 2 and slotted it into any other TV show of all time, like a TV episode of that quality, it'd be an immediate 10 out of 10. So we need to bear that in mind. With Buffy, is that we will sometimes underrate episodes on the basis of the fact that there are so many great episodes.
Oh yeah, this is a weighted thing. Absolutely, yeah.
All right, well there we go. That's season 2 done. That was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
I'm gonna miss season 2.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to season 3 though, because season 3 has a little bit of it's a bit more 90s almost.
Yeah, it's a bit more expansive.
And it has
it's better lit.
It has a few more episodes that are just a bit chill, or has it's a bit more playful, I think, as a season.
Season 2 was breakneck pace in many ways,
and it was so mopey and emo. Where season 3 is a bit more what the fuck.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. And Faith, I love so much.
Faith
so
is
that's
great.
Great. Anya gets introduced. You get double gang lang, then the wish, all that great stuff.
Yeah.
All that great shit.
Faith, the Last Slayer.
Yeah, the Last Slayer. Good point. So, great. So, do you want to do a quick review of the season?
Yeah. It was okay.
What do we call this part of the episode?
Oh gosh, the apocalypse.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what rating do you give this season as a whole out of 10? Last season 1, we gave a 7 out of 10. Both of us did, actually, separately. And I have mine written down here. So
okay, I have mine written down as well. I give this season 10 gaping demonic vore holes.
Okay, wow. Yeah, I give it 10 out of 10. You are now leaving Sundales.
Oh, marry me.
It's just so good. It's for my money's worth, one of the best seasons of any TV show of all time.
Yeah.
It's up there with Leftovers season 3, or say 6 Feet Under season 5.
Doctor Who series 4.
Doctor Who series 4 wouldn't rate up there for me, but just in terms of, I think it's brilliant, but I think it's I don't think it's great outside of Doctor Who fandom.
Sure, I'm inclined to look at this more in the vertical axis of genre TV shows. Gotcha. This is definitely great in terms of television generally. Yeah. I won't argue with that.
West Wing season 3, really
sure.
Good.
But yeah, again, as I've said before, 10 does not mean without flaw. It just means, that I wouldn't improve upon it in some ways.
No, this is the best version of this it could be.
Yeah, it has incredible characterization. Everyone is fully formed. Not fully formed, but everyone everyone's voice is clear as a character. It has a really cohesive story in terms of the arc with Angel, and very intelligible.
Great metaphorical structure as well to the season. Great metaphorical structure to the season.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It has space within it for some Monster Week episodes, which, while none of them are, Buffy doesn't always have Monster Week episodes which are in themselves amazing episodes, writing wise, but they're always very memorable and they're always very fun.
Yeah.
Other genre shows I think can have a Monster Week episode which in itself is dramatic, and Buffy doesn't always land that. But its monsters are just so memorable, and that's kind of what we're here for as well. We're here to see Buffy stake some things. Yeah.
In the same season where Buffy kills love of her life just when he gets his soul back, she also turns into a rat.
Yes.
So, it does have that great fun camp element to it.
Continues to be fun, and what I think really pushes the 10 out of 10 for me here is that rewatching this has really just uncovered some gems, some character moments, some relationship stuff. Just it's a show that continues to give and continues to be such a useful cipher. I don't want to say for our times, but just always something that's continued to be relevant. And I felt very grateful to have the show.
Yeah, me too. It's wonderful.
So what was your favorite episode of this season, Brian?
Yeah, so I had a couple of really good runners up for this one. So amongst my runners up, I had Lie to Me, because I fucking love Lie to Me. I think it's a stunning episode. I think it's the show really like coming into its own for the first time in some ways. What's My Line, part 1 and 2, really great fun, and kind of in some ways the end of the gang being happy and carefree. There was Becoming part 2. Like I was really considering it, actually, because I just think it's so iconic. Innocence and Surprise are just such a stunning back-to-back hit them on the head.
You have to pick one, right?
Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered is one of the best fun episodes of Buffy, like hands down. And Halloween, so fucking good. But no, what takes the cake for me ultimately is Passion.
Okay, tell me why.
I don't remember being that upset in a long time watching an episode of a TV show. Jenny Calendar getting her send off is not fair, but it was so well done. And yeah, it just, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Beautifully shot, so well structured, and it's one of the cruelest things they do in this show, and it's...
But without the hostile cruelty of television now, again, your Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
It's not mindless. It's cruel in the way that Angelus is cruel, which is always related to emotion.
Exactly.
And it gets you. Yeah.
So Passion is my episode of this season.
We have not conferred on this, listeners at home. My episode was also Passion.
Yeah.
Again, I could list all the same episodes you've listed. They're all individually evocative in different ways. Passion is complete. It's incredibly memorable, incredibly... I would say that when we first talked about doing this podcast, one of the first episodes I remembered was Passion, and probably it was one of the ones that convinced me that I wanted to really do it. Was just still caring about a fucking floppy disk 75 years later. I think it has horror, and I think it has heart, and I think it's just an incredible piece of television. My runner up, all of them are great. If I had to pick one runner up, I would say Halloween.
Okay.
Because I think it's the best example, definitely in this season, of the other side of Buffy, where it's just weighted slightly differently, and it's more about Sunnydale, the town, the monster of the week, and how a really good supernatural situation can be used as a cipher to learn more about your characters. It's a great example of that, and I've always had a soft spot, as I've said, for Ethan, as a character. So definitely, I think Halloween was my other one.
How mad is it that there are 3 two-parters in this season? So crazy.
I can't think of any other show that does it.
No, me neither.
It's very, very strange.
Oh, actually, Studio 60 on Sunset Strip does that a weird amount, and not to good effect. Worst episode of the season. What's your vote?
I start with that?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't know if there was a lot of candidates for worst episode, to be honest. I had to look for reasons why I thought they were the worst. So the one that jumps out to me is Bag Eggs. Great. Because I found Bag Eggs kind of the most, as much as I enjoyed watching it at the time, it was trash. It's the most forgettable in some ways. Like, if we have Go Fish is wildly terrible in different ways, but it's more fun, where Bag Eggs was just a bit. I feel that spec script could have been shopped to a lot of different shows that were on network at that time, and that's kind of why I don't think I had the voice.
I agree. I'm actually, so I was...
Oh, actually, sorry, just so we can contextualize, Bag Eggs being the one where they bring eggs home for their family life class or whatever, and there's actually monsters inside them that possess them, and there's a couple of cowboy vampires in it. It's whatever. I was going to go for Reptile Boy, because I think it's just kind of gross, and Reptile Boy being the fraternity episode,
and I also remember finding it boring, but actually I'm going to go for Go Fish. I actually I actually think that the significant... I think I overrated it just a couple of weeks ago, number-wise, but I think the degree to which the sexual assault stuff plays in it is just I'm thinking about it now, gross. When I listened back to us recording that episode, and we had a discussion about it, and we decided to do a content warning for it. Because I was like, you know what, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer shouldn't have the capacity to really ruin someone's day like that way that episode could have.
Yeah.
Unless they're really going to explore it, and they do actually explore that kind of theme later on in the show to a certain degree with more weight and more.
Like not as a punchline, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But as a punchline, it was gross.
No, I can definitely see that. I suppose I'm I'm thinking of it in terms of how I think I'm actually, when I think about the episode, I'm willfully thinking about the fish people and not thinking about the other parts of it.
You're just thinking about the speedos.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character, Joel, of this season so far? Oh, overall. Sorry.
Overall, I'm going to say Giles.
Great.
Because I love Giles.
Yep.
But also because I think this is Giles' season in some ways.
He has a bunch of great notes to this
season.
A
bunch of great notes. He has a bunch of opportunities, frankly, to be a bad character, to be a shitty man about certain things, to be judgmental or unsupportive, and he just constantly doesn't phone it in as a character. He really just come through for Buffy. He has some funny lines. He earns his bread in terms of being her source of knowledge, constantly trying to run into battle and actually like attack things when he shouldn't be doing. And his arc with Jenny is heartbreaking, incredible writing, and incredible performance, man. I think Stuart had.
He takes the cake in terms of, for my money's worth, the two of the best speeches in all of Buffy come from Giles in this season. One of which being "Lie to Me," and just the people with the pointy hats lose, and the good guys are stalwart and true and win.
Yeah.
And the second one being where Buffy, in innocence, says to him, like, I can't remember what she says. She might say, "Do you hate me now?" And he says, "No, I only respect you, and you've been punished enough for this mistake." And
all you have is my support, my respect.
Exactly. So I mean,
absolutely. And his backstory with Ethan and Igong when he was Ripper is just fascinating to me, but also informs his character. I feel like the only character that's as informed by the background is Angel. But like Ripper.
Oh, funny you mentioned that. My favorite character of the season is Angel.
Yeah, okay, I can see that coming.
Yeah. So I have Angel or Giles written down here, and I was going to go Angel regardless. Angel, like David Boreanaz, plays a fucking blinder in this season. He's so good. The character of Angel Angelus is just so multifaceted, so well done, and it'd be so easy in a show of Buffy the Vampire Slayer to have the male lead be somewhat bland, somewhat vapid, somewhat like just mysterious and nothing else. But he's goofy in this season. He is mysterious. He's deeply tragic. He's very fucking menacing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my money goes on Angel, the big bad.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any scene where Giles and Angel are together, it's just electric in terms of like just the quality of acting in the scene.
Agreed.
Least favorite character?
Guess.
Is it Xander?
This is the Xander Harris hate cast. Last season, my least favorite character was Xander, and again, it is fucking Xander.
I just want to be absolutely clear.
I mean, we just watched Becoming Part 2. How could you not fucking hate Xander Harris?
I just want to be clear. I have fished around here, and I've thought, and I've looked at other characters and ones that I thought were weak in their writing or boring. And honestly, Xander is the character I enjoyed the least in this show, in this season.
Me too. Yeah.
He is at times. And the
Becoming Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered was a high point for him.
But the problem is, like, Nicholas,
and that was him like convincing accidentally making a whole town fall in love with him and murderous.
Yeah. The problem is Nicholas Brendan is not a bad actor as Xander. He is funny and engaging when he's being funny and engaging, and that's enjoyable to watch. And I think they do mellow his character as it goes on, but the way he's written in this season, it's inexplicable rage he has, and a sense of constantly being inconvenienced by other people's lives, and occasionally saying just like really offensive things, like saying to Giles, "Hey Giles, Jenny is dead." It's stuck with me, and it's just like I just hate him. I just hate him. To be clear, Xander was also my choice. Right?
Yeah. Who is your favorite big character?
Chantrell from Lie to Me.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Soon to come up again next week.
Yeah. Who is the vampire groupie in that kind of cosplay cult, essentially, because I think it presages a lot of what's now become quite a worn out trope of like satirizing fans within the show.
Yeah, sure.
But in a way that's not mean, in the way that has become in a lot of shows now. And she calls them like they who walk alone at night and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that she goes from that to having a kind of very strong role in Ang, and then later in Buffy evolving
Angel.
In Angel, evolving into someone who kind of just defends her local tenements. I just like her. I think the actress is compelling, and it's an interesting arc. But she's just very funny in an episode that is ultimately like very bleak.
Yeah, definitely. And my favorite big character is probably Harmony. She only appears a couple of times in the season, but she was great.
Yeah, you would love Harmony, wouldn't you?
I do. Who's the worst big character?
I picked Tector Gorch, who is the younger cowboy.
Is he the one who gets killed, or
he's the one who gets killed?
Okay, cool. He's very annoying. Yeah,
he's very annoying because I can wring blood from that stone in terms of the interesting idea of there being like American Old West vampires, but it just doesn't gel. It's like watching an American adaptation of a British TV show that doesn't work because vampires are like such a European concept. See what I'm getting at? And I just think it didn't land for me. And sometimes I find that yeehaw, rootin' tootin' kind of like really broadly portrayed thing just boring and annoying. Yeah, and I just didn't like him.
Fair.
And he was in a bad episode as well.
Yeah, my least favorite was the doctor from Killed by Death, the one who was experimenting on children. That was uncool.
Yeah, who wasn't the one killing them, but was definitely experimenting on them. Yeah.
What was your favorite outfit, Joel?
My favorite outfit was Willow's Halloween costume.
Oh yeah, great one. Okay.
I
wish I thought of that. Cool.
Outfits that I remember both, the kind of the double hitter of both her ghost costume and her like sexy ghost costume as well. It has to be in the top 10 of costumes and outfits you remember from Buffy because it was actually a plot point as well.
Very good point.
And it brings out a great portrayal from Alison Hannigan.
Yeah, mine was Angel's in his red shirt in Lie to Me, where just because it was really funny that we were like, oh look, he's wearing a red shirt, and then immediately he's like, oh, what are people dressing like? They look ridiculous. And
they don't even know what vampires dress like.
And then you see someone else wearing it. But also I thought it was kind of a nice red shirt.
Okay.
Least favorite outfit?
Probably just Xander's bowling shirts, and just generally wearing shirts that are
That's what we said last season. We said,
is it?
Yeah, we said the worst outfit was just Xander generally.
I'm actually just going to stick with it. I don't care if it's the same as last season. He wears these shirts that are 4 sizes too big and shapeless and brown, and they're worse than any individual fashion choice anyone else makes.
We need to give a quick shout out to the awful fashion choices in Lie to Me, the wannabe vamps,
like frills and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But my least favorite outfit is actually going to go to Wentworth Miller in his Sinead O'Connor turtleneck in Go Fish.
Particularly bad.
It was so awful.
I think it was in this season. I'm pretty certain it was. I will say as an alternate, Angel's beige shirt.
Oh yeah, awful.
Which is I had discussed, but was actually noted and remembered in the fandom because the only time Angel wears a beige shirt and it doesn't work for him. Yeah. That was particularly bad.
Beige jacket, I think it was.
I thought it was a shirt. But
it was a white shirt and a beige jacket.
Okay, well, it looked like David Boreanaz had just wandered out of his trailer. So
yeah. What do you think was the best monster in the season?
Okay, my best monster for the season was Ted.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I think we really enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a great portrayal by noted character actor John Ritter. And also it's a fucking robot. It's like how literally I know there are robots and some sci-fi elements in Buffy, but it's real unusual. And it was just, and also Ted as a monster was a monster. It was a really people hate Ted with good reason. So Ted's my monster.
My monster is going to be Billy Grace Poltergeist from Only Advice for You.
Oh, okay.
I just think it was a good metaphorical
metaphor.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say a metaphorical device, also known as a metaphor.
Yeah.
No, it was just well used. It was good.
Great.
My other one was going to be the Kinder.
Their Kinderstut.
There's Kinderstut. Yeah. Who from Kill by Death. Okay, there we go. Done. This episode was fucking long. Oops.
I'm sure people will be shocked to find out that the last episode of season 2 is going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap that up. Well, thank you very much if you've stuck with us this far. We've really enjoyed it. We have vampire-like outlived the lifespan of many other podcasts who have attempted this many episodes and this much of Buffy, so we're quite proud of that. So we will see you next week for the first episode of season 3, which is called Anne. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to season 3 in general.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a little lighter, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see you next week. Please follow us on Twitter. Tell your friends. Tell your apocalypse demons. And enjoy and start listening to our episodes again because they're really good.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Okay.
See you next time on
Buffy Boys.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool.
See you.